Welcome to The Point. I'm Michael Schur, and we are joined today by three fantastic guests on The Point, and we have two amazing points and then one little letter from a 7-year-old that I think you will find to be a special point. I'm grateful to be seated beside tonight Mariana Tosca, who I would say is an actress, a writer, a producer, and an advocate. Is that a social advocate? We have Armighty May. Armighty, you are a veterinarian and an animal rights activist as well. And Adam Sakalaridis. Adam is a graphic designer and an animator, right? Who has made what is, it seems, the #2 video according to Time Magazine.
According to Time, yeah.
According to Time Magazine, the #2 creative video of the year last year. So congratulations on that.
Thank you very much.
Our points tonight are really interesting. We have Wayne Pacelle, who's the CEO and president of the Humane Society of the United States. We have Lee Camp, a comedian and activist himself. And as I told you before, we have a special 7-year-old who's going to contribute to our show in his own way tonight. But first, we're going to start with Wayne Pacelle. Wayne Pacelle, as CEO and president of the Humane Society of the United States. This is our environmental show. So remember, this is all about being green, about being activists when it comes to the environment and animals, and we're going to set it off right now with Wayne Pacelle. Here's Wayne Pacelle.
Hi, I'm Wayne Pacelle, President and CEO of the Humane Society of the United States. Thanks for having me on the show. My point today is that if we care about animals, we have to be concerned about the biggest issue of them all, factory farming. You know, we in our society are opposed to animal cruelty. I mean, you can't find but a handful of people who would say this is not a universal value. Malicious, exploitative, abusive activity toward animals is wrong. And every state has prohibitions on that broader concept and behavior. The problem is we're not living that principle in the real world. You know, we get a pet if we're a big pet-loving household every few years. We buy products in the marketplace, you know, every couple of weeks that may or may not be tested on animals. But every single day, we're making a choice to be for animal cruelty or against animal cruelty with our food selection choices. Because the vast majority of animals raised for food in America, and it's 10 billion a year, are raised on industrialized factory farms, where the animals have been genetically manipulated for hyper rates of growth, for enormous body mass, which leads to chronic pain and suffering. And then many of them are jammed into warehouses, and then within those warehouses, they are confined in small cages and crates, barely larger than their bodies. Now again, if we're concerned about animal welfare, we must be concerned about our dietary choices, because there is no category of animal use and harm that's bigger than factory farming. You don't have to be a vegetarian. You can be an omnivore or a vegetarian and still make sounder choices with respect to animal protection. So that's my point for the day.
And we thank Wayne Pacelle for that point. You know, it's so interesting. We spend our lives, at least I do anyway, so I shouldn't bring you into the royal we there, as such a hypocrite. You know, I am an omnivore, as he said, and I'm heavy on the omna lately. But truthfully, the idea that I really love animals. I own dogs. I've had them my whole life. I get them more than every few years, or I actually try and space it out a little more than Wayne. Wayne's not really taking care of his animals, it doesn't seem, if he gets a new pet every few years. But the idea that we spend so much of our time loving animals in this country, in this society, yet we talk about and we are witness to daily cruelty, and we're not witness to, and that's where the hypocritical part of me comes in. I'm not witness. I didn't read the books that everyone's were enraged about, the Fast Food Nation books and all of the books about factory farming, because I sort of turned a blind eye to it. Now, I want to start with Armighty, because Armighty is a veterinarian. I think when you're talking about animals, and you have a veterinarian in the room, that's where you start. Where does what Wayne Pacelle said about how we have a universal love for animals in this country, you know, and then there's a break with that. Why are we so cruel to them so often?
Yeah, it's a question that I ponder frequently, and as a veterinarian in practice on a daily basis, I see people coming in wanting to take care of their animals, usually dogs and cats, and I see their tremendous love and compassion they have for these animals and how they struggle financially to meet obligations to meet their pets' needs. And yet there's this cognitive dissonance that exists in people's minds where they don't connect where they get the food on their plates, how it gets there.
Yeah. That cognitive dissonance is a really important thing because, as I understand that, it's a separation from what is real and what is happening in your life. Mariana, what do you think when you sit down and I don't know if you're a pet owner or not, but I'm guessing you are.
I have companion animals, and I consider myself a guardian, not an owner.
Right.
And I just wanted to say something. You should not feel like you're a hypocrite. You're just uninformed, and most of the people in America are. There is a process.
But I want to interrupt you for a second
sure.
because I feel like I'm consciously uninformed.
Okay,
I feel like I'm uninformed because I choose not to want to know about factory farming. In preparing for this show, for example, I think we all read some things that were really disturbing, and why do I eat a hamburger ever? Why do I do that? But I love a hamburger. There's that. So there is a.
But Michael, there are products that taste just like hamburger that you can get that are plant-based, and so you can still satiate that need that you have for whatever taste.
You're right, except for the taste just like hamburger part.
Oh, no. After the show, I will give you a list of products.
That's fine. Okay, but continue. I interrupt.
No, that's okay. There is a socialization, a desocialization process that occurs throughout our lives. It's from the media, it's from advertising, it's at every meal from the moment we're born, all through our lives, what we eat at every meal desocializes us to what is happening to these animals. Most people don't understand that. I'm going to sidetrack here for a second.
Yeah.
There's something called the Animal Welfare Act, and it's a law that was enacted to, it's not perfect, but it does afford some protections for the animals that we are the stewards of on Earth. What most people don't know is that farm animals are exempt from the Animal Welfare Act.
Right.
That means it's a free-for-all with them. And with the Humane Slaughter Act, birds are exempt from that law, which means if you're a chicken, if you're one of the 10 billion chickens or 300 million turkeys that are being processed through our factory farms over the course of a year, you're really in trouble.
Yeah, well, I mean, yes, you're clearly in trouble. Everything we hear about that. Adam, tell me what you think when you hear Humane Slaughter Act. Isn't that just an oxymoron?
I've never personally experienced slaughter before, so I wouldn't know but I think I understand what it's like to be an omnivore and feel very, very, very guilty and be like, oh, it's just so convenient. There's a burger stand right over there.
Yeah.
And I feel like most of it is actually about convenience. If you were to put a Whole Foods Express on every single, if there were just as many locations right across the street from a McDonald's,
right,
people would open up to that and gradually move the other way. As we've seen that, like, as time marches on, people end up coming around to a certain way of thinking. It was interesting because with the industrialization in the 50s, it would be like, oh, eat your meat,
Yeah.
And that made actually a very strong generation, but now we have an imbalance where we've gone too far the other way, and it's too meat heavy.
I agree with that. We've gone too far the other way, but it's also the way we've gone too far. Mm-hmm. When you're talking about farming versus factory farming, I find it so interesting. I don't know if any of you have seen these new McDonald's ads. And what McDonald's is doing is they're talking about the farmers. The farmers, there's a man sitting on a pile of potatoes talking about how lucky these potatoes are that they will one day be at McDonald's and taste a whole lot better than they do right now, et cetera. The same thing with the beef farmers, when in fact that's a ruse, because these farmers, the 80% of the farming that's done in this country is owned by 4 major companies when it comes to creating beef.
Yeah.
So so this whole idea that we fancy that Whole Foods on every corner, we fancy the family farmer out there, that's gone with factory farming. I mean, this is an industry right now. So as animal lovers, I mean, you're a veterinarian. Where do you draw that line? I mean, you have to say, at a certain point, the welfare of the animal has to be taken into consideration, but we are a carnivorous society. We have big business. What is humane slaughter? I mean, I don't understand that.
Yeah, the Humane Slaughter Act is grossly misunderstood, unfortunately, and the vast majority of animals raised for food are not even covered under this act. Birds, for example, who comprise over 95% of the animals slaughtered for food, are not even protected under this law at all. And the mammals, who are protected, presumably, are not really protected because it's not enforced.
Right.
And time and again, undercover investigations have shown terrible mishandling and gross abuses of these animals, which baffles everyone. Well, how does this happen? But the reality is, animals are going through this line at such a rapid pace. The workers may stop to sneeze, and in that time, 3 animals can go by the line and not be properly stunned before their throats are slit.
Yeah, but, and when you say that, Armighty, I'm thinking, how in the world can I buy into this? Because I do, you know, how in the world can I be a part of what goes on? And I think at certain times, all of us have been, whether as children, and it doesn't sound like there's a lot of meat eaten in the middle of this table, but maybe at the end. But the idea, you know, it's funny, I'm going to tell a quick anecdote. Last year or 2 years ago, I found a baby sparrow that had fallen out of its nest into my little yard. I was, of course, I made a bunch of phone calls, and I found somebody about an hour away from me, and I drove this little baby sparrow to this woman's house who had this bird sanctuary on a Sunday. And well, the story ends poorly. You can nod and say how cute and great, but it isn't cute and great. And then I came home and I went to a Japanese restaurant and I had chicken, and everything that happened to me in that moment when I took this bite, I said, what did I just do? I mean, I spent 2 hours of my life saving this sparrow and eating this chicken. I think we all have that kind of hypocrisy who eat meat in this country. Do we not?
Yeah, and same with the treatment of animals in the farms compared to how we treat our animal companions in our homes. I mean, I do spays and neuters on dogs and cats, and we always take the utmost care to not only anesthetize the animals, but give them proper analgesics or pain control medications.
Right.
Yet pigs, who are just as conscious and capable of feeling as dogs are,
more so. So some people
get
say more so.
castrated without anesthesia.
Yeah.
It's extraordinary. You're absolutely right. These animals have no protections under the law.
Yeah.
And whenever somebody goes to a restaurant and buys a piece of meat, they are entering into a relationship of complicity. They are allowing someone else to do to these animals what they themselves, even if you're the most compassionate person on the planet and you're still engaging or buying into the product of this industry, you are allowing somebody else to do what you yourself would not do.
Right.
And as Armighty was describing, the way these animals are killed is really extraordinary. The way they're kept on factory farms, not just slaughtered, but the way they're housed there is really egregious.
They're denied basic instincts. They're denied the ability to move around, spread their limbs.
Space. It's amazing. I mean, the injuries that these animals sustain, but just from not being strong enough, is incredible. Now, okay, so let's say we know these things, right? What would you say, and very, very quickly, like what is one thing that one person can do to make a difference?
It's going to sound trite, but I would highly recommend going to farmsanctuary.org. It's a nonprofit organization that's been trying to raise education about these specific issues for decades. Farm Sanctuary. I would, personally, I don't like to say stop eating meat. I don't think that will help the problem. Educate yourselves on the grains and legumes are so much more cost effective for us to grow and to, in terms of health, they're much better for us than the meats that we're eating.
If I opened a legume restaurant and I wanted to make a living
I would
with
be there every day.
You would be there, and you would be dining alone, I would imagine.
No, I'd be with her.
All right, that's fine. But if we were in Dubuque, Iowa, it wouldn't be the case.
Getting those legume subsidies.
Right.
You know? We
That's
also heavily subsidize the meat industry and corn to feed all these animals.
Excellent point.
To a point where it's not even practical monetarily to be a vegetarian.
Not to mention feed them corn, which is not part of their natural diet in the first place. So I mean, there's that whole
You've done your homework.
trickle down for this. In any case, you've all made good points. Wayne's point was interesting. It does make us think, and we will be back with another point shortly. Welcome back to The Point. Michael Schur with you. We have a fantastic panel. We're going to go right to our next point. Our second point, it comes to us from Lee Camp, a comedian and activist, and we're going to be talking on this environmental show about the dangers, or perhaps not if you think it's the best thing in the world, of fracking, which is, I would say, a subject that is causing a lot of controversy in the energy and environmental work right now. Without further talk, here's Lee Camp.
Hey guys, Lee Camp here. I'm just gonna rant for a minute about fracking, and hopefully at some point I'll have a point. For those who don't know, hydraulic fracking is the process by which total assholes stick their massive shafts into the earth, even though the earth has clearly stated she doesn't want anything to do with their shafts. They then ejaculate a massive load of chemical cocktail into the earth, and it forces out billions of dollars of unnatural gas. And according to them, there's no ill effects of fracking whatsoever. It doesn't contaminate the water table or the land or cause massive earthquakes. Except when it does. There are a few cases of people finding out that their tap water is now flammable. But haven't you ever heard the expression, if you can't handle the heat of your tap water, then get out of the kitchen? Clearly, the easy solution is to get out of the kitchen forever. And don't drink the tap water, or any water. On second thought, you should probably condemn the entire building just to be safe, or maybe move to another county in Spain. See? Easy answers. And yes, fracking is now causing earthquakes. There have been 11 earthquakes in Ohio alone, some as big as 4.0. And I don't know if everyone's aware of this, but earthquakes are not so good for living. Yeah, living in earthquakes often butt heads. They very rarely get along. Something tells me no one is going to be too fracking thrilled about their affordable natural gas when their goddamn apartment is coming down on their heads. And I bet soon enough these companies will come out with a positive spin on all this. They'll go, those weren't earthquakes, those were love snuggles from Mother Nature. You know women, after being fracked, they always want to snuggle. That's right, this is greed so immense, it's literally causing fracking earthquakes. What the fracking fracker of a fucked up situation is this? So anyway, I hope you see my point.
Lee Camp is really fracking good. That was an unbelievable video. But come on, we need energy. We need energy in this country. We need it in this world. Every single way of deriving energy has its problems, whether it be wind and solar, whether it be, fossil fuels. Adam, come on. What do we do? Do we need energy bad enough that we're going to frack?
Well, we shouldn't necessarily do all the fracking that we're fracking doing, but what the frack, why not?
All right. Okay. Might be time for you get one frack joke and you get one frack joke, and then no more frack jokes.
I apologize.
That's fine.
I'm sorry.
No. You have to.
Okay,
go.
I know.
It's called frack.
It's just too fracking. It's fun.
Fracking called fracking.
No, we don't necessarily need to frack. And when I was involved in this animation that I made. It was based on a song written by friend David M. Holmes, and he wrote this wonderful song about the effects of actually just explaining what fracking is, and it blew up on the internet. You should go see it. Plug. It's called My Water's on Fire Tonight, and I animated it with my coworker Lisa Rucker. And when I researched this, I discovered that it's so much more dangerous than anything we should be doing. It's polluting water all over the place, and it's just a really big problem in general.
But here's the thing. We have all this natural gas in this country, and we have the ability to cut through the shale and send that pipe down there, blow through, and they're saying the dangers are limited, that they're really minor dangers.
Well, they're saying the dangers are limited because there are two different types of drilling. There's conventional and unconventional drilling. So when you're hearing these statistics from the industry, they're using conventional drilling statistics to push their agenda. Unconventional drilling, with conventional drilling, you have a well, you bore a hole, you go down, you stick a casing in. When you get to a joint in the Marcellus shale layer, if there's gas in it, you're great, you're in business. If not, you move a mile down, you drill another well. With unconventional drilling, what happens is you go down and they need 4 different types of new technology that's just been developed over the last 16 years. The first of it is directional drilling. So now they can go diagonally, laterally, and vertically. So what happens is they drill down. When they get to that shale layer, now they're going to be going out a mile or two in that shale layer to make sure that they are absolutely grabbing as much of that inventory as possible. That's where the problem lies, is when they're forcing all of this fluid, essentially giving the earth an enema over and over and over again. That is busting these fissures in that shale layer. And everything is man-made here, so you've got potential dangers from the casing itself.
Yeah, that's the whole thing, is that it's all man-made and all these dangers exist. And in 1974, Gerald Ford said, we're going to have the Safe Water Act. And they signed the Safe Water Act, and then what happened? In 2005, they said, well, we're going to revisit this. And a little company called Halliburton, I don't know if you remember Halliburton, they're a little outfit, little outfit out of Texas. And the president and the Congress decided there's going to be a little loophole in that Safe Water Act, allowing for the hydraulic fracturing that is going on, the fracking that we're talking about today. But Armighty, when that happens, sometimes it's with a good reason, sometimes it's not. Natural gas is very, very expensive right now. We have, a lot of it in this country, and we need access to it.Hy is it not okay to, if it is largely safe, if we see a safety in this, that on balance, it is as safe or as dangerous as fossil fuels, certainly more safe in a lot of people's minds than nuclear energy. Why are we having such a problem with fracking?
Well, I think it goes back to regulation of safety and taking care of the environment to the extent that we are able to, being responsible, putting in place restrictions when, as Mariana alluded to, when they're getting to where it's causing the earth to have its limitations. We need to put limits on that so it doesn't get so out of hand. I mean, this is getting to the point where people's water is flammable. That's crazy. How can someone even...
Okay, but then, there are always the extreme cases. I mean, not everybody they've been fracking now for years. Not everybody who's having a glass of water is having the water catch on fire.
The statistic they're using is 99.9% safe. That means 1 in 1,000 wells will cause environmental damage. When you're looking at an industry or a company that has 100,000 wells, that's 100 instances of environmental damage. Right now, there's something close to 500,000 of these wells up. That's a frack of a lot.
There you go. You've used
I got
yours
mine.
now.
I got mine.
Armighty's the only one with a frack on the board. But yeah, no, I hear what you're saying, and it does make sense. But listen, we got to get our energy somewhere, don't we? And every place go up into the sky and get all solar energy, but there's a cost to that. And yes, I think it would be terrific if we could use solar energy all the time. It is impractical. What is amazing, though, is that solar energy, I've learned, can help make this fracking process a lot safer, because there's a way to not have to frack, get the water, get the chemicals that, by the way, the chemicals they use in fracking, they don't even have to disclose what they are.
Exactly, they're proprietary.
Unbelievable, they're proprietary.
Exactly.
They don't have to say what the chemicals are that they send into the frack hole.
That's why we need
transparency.
We need transparency. We need to get the Frack Act passed. Once that happens, these industries, another thing that needs to happen is fines, substantial fines have to be imposed for contamination, for spills, because what needs to happen is these really big numbers have to be slapped down on these people's wrists so that it becomes a deterrent as opposed to just the cost of doing business.
Right. Well, I understand that. The reason I'm bringing this up, though, is because we have to get our energy from someplace, and there are dangers associated.
Then we wouldn't need as much energy to begin with.
If I start eating plant-based food,
absolutely.
She brings it back
all the way back to veggie burgers. It all just comes back to veggie burgers, doesn't it? But no, but I'm seriously, Adam, we have to light our homes, we have to do this, and cost does become an issue. We live in a world where money does matter. I'm not defending the big people with the factory farms and the factory fracks and all of that. I'm just saying that we need energy in this world. That's a basic thesis.
We've come to a point where solar energy is actually reaching the point where it's actually a little bit cheaper than coal. And that means that it's actually affordable, because right now probably much of our energy is coal. It's not worth the cost to when the fracking companies say, "Oh, don't worry, we've put a concrete wall here that's isolated from the aquifer," and well, you're breaking the ground anyway. What makes you think that this concrete wall that you're creating isn't breaking as well? There's so many points of failure that it's and without the regulation, because back the Safe Drinking Water Act that Bush signed. wasn't necessarily about making safe drinking water, you know?
Especially since there was an
Well,
exemption
it
for
was, I
Halliburton
mean,
there.
the Safe Drinking Water Act, though, it was at the time when Ford signed it, it was about safe drinking water. It was about preventing those things, because Ford, as we know, probably would have been a Democrat today. It was a different kind of control that money had over politics. But forgetting the politics of it, I mean, you make a great point. There are dangers all the way down the line. I disagree a little bit on solar energy. Yes, the solar energy itself is cheaper. The infrastructure for it is not there and would cost a lot of money over time, and we all know that. And I'm not in favor of this hydraulic fracturing, but it seems that there has to be a happy medium with a lot of this that will make the environmentalists happy and will make the fuel companies happy. I mean, natural gas would save a lot of money for a lot of people, a lot of poor people in America too, if we had our supply of natural gas. I mean, where do you start to say, okay, we're gonna be okay with this if they put these measures in place, or do you just say absolutely not, goodbye, see you later, frack you?
No, I couldn't say frack you, because then that'd be twice.
That would be twice.
And it'd be
I've
against
already
the rules.
violated.
Right,
Yeah.
Right. What was your question, Michael?
No, my question, Mariana, is where do you say it's okay? Where's the happy medium here?
I don't know if there is a happy medium, to tell you the truth. People's lives right now are being significantly destroyed because of this practice. This I found astounding. Industry is being allowed to drill in our national parks.
Yeah.
Why is that happening? Because the government does not have the mineral rights below the surfaces. They only govern the surface rights.
It's public and private land that is at risk when they do this, and it's all people everywhere that are at risk as well. And they are on schedule now to drill 50 million more of these wells and go in and frack the hell out of us.
We need to lobby the frack out of our Congress people.
There you go.
And that is the point. Let's lobby the frack out of our Congress people. And Michael Schur will be back with another point in just a moment. Welcome back to The Point. I'm Michael Schur, and we have a fantastic panel tonight. We're joined, coming this way this time, Adam Sakalaridis, our Mighty May, and Mariana Tasca. We have a point now that we're not going to show a video of necessarily. I'm going to tell you what this is. Last week there was a football game played, and I know not all of you are football fans. The San Francisco 49ers played the New York Giants. In that game, a player for San Francisco, Kyle Williams, a wide receiver and punt returner, fumbled twice. But his last fumble was a devastating fumble for the 49ers and their fans, because it allowed the other team to get the ball in overtime and then proceed to win. I happen to have been watching with my 7-year-old son, and we are 49ers fans. My son Owen, it was his first sort of interaction with the devastation of being a sports fan, and there were tears, there was inconsolable crying. And I didn't really know what to say. I should have expected it. I said to him, Owen, you know, imagine if you feel this badly, how Kyle Williams must feel right now. And at that point, he said to me, well, I think I'm going to write a note. I want to write a note to him, which was sweet. And of course, any father would be proud and think it's fantastic. This is the note he wrote. Dear Mr. Williams, we just watched the playoff game. I feel really bad for you, but I wanted to tell you that you had a great season. You should be very proud, so I wanted to say thank you. I am your #1 fan. Owen Schur, P.S. You're awesome. And of course, there are all the misspellings of a 7-year-old, and I'm not saying this to talk about what a great son I have. That is implicit because he's great. But what I'm talking about is where we have come in this world of anonymity. Because what happened the next day and that night and that evening to Kyle Williams were death threats. I want to kill your family. I want to kill you. I hope your wife dies. You should jump off the Golden Gate Bridge. I hope somebody hands you the ball next year and it explodes. And here, juxtaposed to my sweet son and any sweet child who's looking at this and saying, you know, I hope you have, you know, everything's okay and you're still a good player. The power of anonymity, you know, where does that, where have we come now where you can write a comment to somebody and be so cruel and be so uncaring? Why is that? Why is that happening now? And is it one of the real faults of the internet?
It's a fault in the internet, but it's also one of the benefits of the internet is that, you know, like Anonymous can go out and do their crazy activist things just as much as somebody unfortunately can say these horrible things and make a player feel really horrible about a screw up that I'm sure they didn't want to happen.
But there was activism, Adam, before there was Anonymous. There were people protesting wars and protesting civil rights. There were people protesting the Equal Rights Amendment. I mean, there's everything that we can think of until the internet had proud activists, people that were proud to oppose what they saw.
But sometimes you need that anonymity for whistleblowers and stuff like that. And sometimes these people wouldn't have been saying the things that they would be saying, these good things, if there wasn't that anonymity.
Well, Armadi, I want you to continue on that subject a little bit, because I don't really agree with Adam here. I don't think that we can, of course we can say, yes, there are benefits to the internet. We know a lot more, we know a lot more quickly. Whistleblowers, all of these things that he's listing, they were there already. I mean, we've had them already. So what, and of course we don't want to have an ID law on the internet that you have to be you, because that would be a violation of every kind of a civil right. But what can be done? I mean, is there anything we can do? Is there something wrong with our society and that's just it?
I think there's definitely something wrong with our society. And when we see comments like these, it is alarming that there's something very deeply troubling. First of all, that we take a sports game so seriously to respond in this manner, and then to attack another human being in such a vile way. I mean, it reflects something within ourselves that we need to address. And in that way, hopefully we can turn it around and make it to something positive and heal ourselves, because we're clearly in trouble if this is the type of comment that's being put out there. And I like the flagging aspect that websites have, where comments can be flagged as inappropriate.
Yeah.
And people
it's
can
a
rate
Band-Aid,
them.
though. It's a Band-Aid. I don't have the cure, but it's a Band-Aid.
Yeah.
And Mariana, I think that when you look at this, just goes beyond sportsmanship too. There's something I think that is fractured in our to continue a theme, but in societally fractured when people feel like they have to vent their venom and anger online at a football player. But it's not just, we know it's not just a football player. It's a politician.
Sure.
It's somebody in another class. It goes to bullying.
Sure.
I mean, it's all over the place.
I
now.
cannot wrap my brain around this. I really can't. I don't understand what would compel somebody to behave that way, anonymously or otherwise.
Right.
The anonymous internet use does embolden people to think that they can get away with a lot of stuff they would never have the courage to do in face-to-face with someone. I think what it comes down to is that for a lot of people, myself included, our daily lives, there are things that just aren't I don't know, they might dislike for whatever reason, and so we need distractions to kind of pull us out of
definitely,
that.
yes.
Entertainment, sports, art, music. But where the problem lies is when our identity becomes so enmeshed with that outside activity that we have no control over. And when something goes awry in it, then we react personally as if it's happening to us. And that's what I see with this poor man, Kyle. I mean, he fumbled a ball. I'm not a sports fan, but he fumbled a ball.
Yeah, no, I mean, this example is egregious. I mean, this is a terrible example, but there are smaller examples and there are bigger examples too when somebody really does screw something up. I mean, I remember writing a letter to the editor when I was here. Remember you opened the newspaper and there were letters to the editor and it would be Fred Smith in West Covina, and you knew where Fred Smith was and you knew where West Covina was. That the idea that we now have to communicate as using aliases, and it's scary, man. I think it's just scary that that's how this goes forward. And I don't know what the cure is, and I don't know that, my point here is that we have to take a look in the mirror at what's going on. But it's a pretty weak point I make, because so we take a look in the mirror and we realize we're not doing it, but there's still people out there doing it.
Still people out there like 7-year-olds who actually get it.
Well, yeah, that
gives me hope for the future.
Right, and a lot of people agreed with you, and it was flattering as his dad to hear that. But again, I don't want to focus on Owen and Kyle. It's more about the idea of being empowered by our anonymity rather than being proud and taking a stand. Adam, you did bring up Anonymous, and there are good things to be said about that. There are good things to be said about a world where their whistleblowers can thrive because of being on. But a whistleblower can also type a letter, lick an envelope, and slip it under the boss's door. And in many cases, that is how whistleblowing was done before. Isn't there a better way than anonymously being on a comment? Because what if we just got rid of the comment section of every website and every blog?
Then we'd be repressing speech. And
we would be, right?
But it's always something.
Right. Well,
I feel like this is just a necessary evil that we end up living with when it comes to free speech. Somebody says something you don't like, and I doubt that most of those people who would.
removing objectionable comments when
But
they
again,
get to
that's
the-
no different than saying no. I mean, no comments to me is better than putting a moderator in there, because
No,
a
but I mean,
moderator is a
there-
person, presumably, and who has an opinion themselves, and they're going to say, you know, if somebody watches a video on YouTube and they watch this video and they say, you know, Michael Schur is long-winded and boring and we don't ever want to watch him
Well,
again.
that's his opinion.
That's
But
their-
then
Right.
to progress to say something that's threatening,
exactly.
that is not acceptable.
Well, that is
and
not
that's
acceptable, but-
Or
considered-
violates their privacy rights.
Right, but violating one's private, we don't have any privacy anymore, Marianne. I mean, that's the thing. Everybody knows my name is up there, and it just, I think if you got rid of the comments section completely in life, that you would, it's better than a moderator.
Do you really think that? Because I have to tell you, I've learned so much information through comment sections on you know, videos and blogs and stuff that I would not have found otherwise.
It just seems to me a forum of vitriol, and
I agree
it's
with that.
extreme. It's extreme what I'm saying.
Isn't
it's
this
never
a
going to
forum of
happen.
vitriol, though?
Well, no,
also,
I mean,
in a
no,
way?
but we know that you're Adam Saccalarides. We know that you live at 314 Oak Street. But the truth is, we're out here with our opinions and we're sharing them with each other. That's a risk we're taking. And yes, I get, you know, that's a good point you make. You know, you're saying this isn't that what this is, and don't we want to hear somebody disagree with us, or we're not putting our feet down here and saying
Yes.
this is the way it is. But
And what would you do to, at the same time, you want to make somebody look in the mirror, but how can you stop someone from taking something a little too seriously? You know, we all want to belong to something, and sports fans want to belong to the team, you know?
Yeah.
It gives them a meaning, whether it's belonging to a particular group of people who like to own really shiny computers with a certain fruit logo on the back or whatever. You like to belong to something, and
Right.
and when somebody, you know, when something happens, you just can't help but take it a little too seriously.
Right, but Armighty, when you're belonging to something, if we're going along with what Adam's saying, you belong to something, and you want to defend that, or you want to just put it out there and not have it be torn to pieces, whatever it is, isn't that a right too? I mean, isn't it like this? I mean, why are we risking so much all the time just by, you know, having things out in society? Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, well, why do we take such risks?
We want to be recognized.
Very well said. Very well said. I completely agree with that. I didn't mean to cut you off, but when you said that, it resonated because
Yeah.
I do agree. I think a lot of people that are perpetuating this kind of behavior are people who don't feel empowered in
They're
their own lives.
insecure
Yeah.
and in the inside, and they feel they have to lash out in order to make themselves feel more important.
So are these all the shy people that were just too afraid to stand up in public speaking class and say what they're saying, and now they have this area that they can go into and say these hateful
so much more
things?
tempting
It
to,
wouldn't
on Twitter,
surprise me.
pick up 140 characters of, well, this is exactly what's on my mind at this very moment. You know,
Right.
and you don't give it a second thought. You hit send, and there you go. And then you say,
Well,
maybe I shouldn't have done that.
well, I mean, there is regret, but there doesn't seem to be a ton of regret because so many people are doing this. You know, I mean, there's regret in an individual and anecdotal ways, but you know, in a broad, sweeping way, people are still doing it constantly. You know,
I guess that my only question is, I wonder if the people who were tweeting this to Kyle.
they were tweeting this to Kyle. Yeah, and I guess there were other, you know, comments in other places.
I wonder if they would continue their train of thought or actually have the courage to say that to him in person, or if their opinion would change
Well,
if they were
that's my
standing.
point. If you're sitting next to somebody, your opinion's definitely going to
Yeah.
change. You know, you can scream at the driver next to you and say, "Oh, you don't have no idea. You can't drive. You're terrible,"
Right.
and any other things you might say to them. They get out of their car and they come up to you and they come up to your window and start screaming. You're like, "Oh, sorry."
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it is very different. It's that distance. It is that anonymity, and that's exactly what I'm talking about. And that, I think, is what is so scary about where we're going with these things. And again, there's nothing short of a First Amendment violation that would stop it. But there has to be some kind of an awareness that we instill in people because this is the way that kids are growing up now. This is how people are communicating. This is what's going on.
Not your kids.
Well, not my kid, but he is. He's going to be, you know, he's going to be 12 years old and he's going to be tweeting, and somebody could be bullying him, or he might even be a bully. Who knows? But
Bullying is a very serious issue in schools these days, and I think we do need to address it, educate people, especially educators who are themselves teaching these kids and instilling them with values they're going to carry for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, but you know what, Armandi? The bullying is a big issue. When we were in school, when I was in school anyway, bullying happened in the yard or in the classroom. Now it's happening from, bullier 463 at so-and-so. And so people don't know where it's coming from. In any case, it is not, it's not something that we have been able to solve here. And but I think, but the truth is, I think, and this is my point, the solution is in the discussion of it. And it doesn't get discussed enough. So there, we made our point. I'm Michael Schur. Thanks for watching the show tonight. And I thank Adam Sakalarides, Armandi May, and Mariana Tosca for being with us tonight. And we hope you make your point.